So now that I've established these main parts of the face, I want to go ahead and change the angle of the brow line to something more like that. So I'm going to just go ahead and put in that angle there. I'm going to do the same thing on the nose. Mouth, it's going to be somewhere here, and chin. Okay, so don't let that throw you. I'm really just trying to be true to the angles of her face. Go ahead and remove this because that could be confusing. Okay, so right now I am going to use this line here to indicate the center line of her face. That is subject to change depending on how I see things as I progress. I'm also going to indicate the outside edge of her face here. Then I will bring this over. I know that, let's see. I think I'm going to move this I'm going to put that that line of division between the front part of her face and the ellipse on the side. I'm going to make the ellipse smaller. And then I will create that line down, which will start the jawline. It does curve on her, comes down and across. Okay. So my ear, I'm going to go ahead and just indicate roughly where that will be. Her ear, I'm looking at the top of her helix, top of her ear here. It's pretty much going right through the center of the eyes, which will be about here. So I don't want to make top of the ear too high. I'm going to put it about right there. And it's also falling below her nose. And right now, I think that's okay. That up a little bit. So you can see as I begin to place these features, I'm going to get rid of more and more of that initial circle, the landmark lines, the ellipse. I don't really need them. I need them at the beginning but as I develop my drawing, I don't need them as much. So looking at the angle here from the top of the highest point of her eyebrow down to her ear, I see a line. I'm going to just drop her ear down a little bit more. Like right there. Okay. Can also put in the sort of the area where I know the glabella, which is that keystone bone right between the eye sockets. She's got a pretty broad nasal bone. I'm going to try to pay attention to that, especially as I develop the area around her eye on this side in particular, so I don't end up narrowing it too much. Okay. So eyes will fall in here. Brow line. Temple. Cheekbone. I'm just mapping out some things. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and just put the nose in, starting with this front plane. Which is fairly broad. Definitely going to have to go in there and add more of her cheekbone on this side. Just make a mark there to indicate the nostril on the left side. There's just the slightest indication of the nostril wing on the left. Septum here, and then the nostril opening on our right. I'm just going to just very simply make a darker shape right there. Wing of the nostril coming up. And then I'm going to just indicate there's a good shadow here. Everything from this point down on the nose, I want to put in shadow the side planes of the nostril, the downward plane of the septum. Can extend that over just a little bit more. Looking again at the distance between edge of the face and the nostril. Okay, So now I'm going to go ahead and place her mouth. Here's the line of the mouth that I started with. I'm going to get rid of some of this noise right in here. Okay. Philtrum. Just below that is arc of the top lip on our left. This side is foreshortened because of the turn of her head. You see more of a broad tip of her lip on our right. Okay. I'm not sure exactly if I'm going to keep that as my corner of the mouth. I'd rather have it too long at first. I can always go back and extend that. The node here on our left creates a nice little shadow shape in this corner. And I also want to make room for this slight downward curved shadow. It's needs a little bit more room in here. I'll come back and deal with that much later. It's a detail that I don't need to really focus on right now. Shadow under the lower lip. So I want to make sure I don't cut off her chin. So as you're probably discovering, you know, any method that you are using as a guide is really, it's subject to a lot of variables and change. What started as the center line shifted here because of the angle of her head. So you're constantly looking and analyzing what you're seeing based on maybe those initial placements that you started working with. And that's why a drawing, a painting, anything that you are creating from observation is a constant process of refinement. And you are just really at the beginning, you're kind of doing a lot of speculative work, trying to use your best observational judgment. And as you develop more and more of the drawing, you continue to see more places where you will need to make changes and refinements. And that is that's the challenge and the beauty of working from observation, whether it's life or from a photograph. The photograph gives us a little bit more stability in terms of not having to account for a living, breathing model. But in some ways, it's also not quite as exhilarating as working from an actual person. So she's got kind of a triangular shape here that makes up this side plane of her nose. I want to just generally kind of place that to make sure that I really give the eyes enough space. I'm also going to just put a tone into this eye cavity. This is a downward plane, so I can suggest that at the initial stage of my drawing. I'm really thinking about that handout that I gave you that shows all of the downward planes, the side planes, the frontal planes. They really inform how I approach a drawing. Okay, just checking to make sure my battery is in good shape. All right, I want to check a measurement before I go any further. And I'm going to go from the corner of her mouth to the outside edge of her jawline. And I'm going to grab a skewer to do this. Find one in my bag. It's a little bit easier. To use a skewer than it is a pencil. All right, so there's my measurement. And I want to take this measurement and I want to compare it to the corner of her mouth to her jawline and see if, okay, they're just about the same. There's just a little bit more. Let me double check that again. Just a little bit more. And I have a feeling this is going to need to move over. So check mine. Yes, I am off. It's amazing how you don't see things as clearly as you think you do. All right, so there was my mark. Okay, I'm going to take another measurement now, and I'm going to measure from the corner of this eye to the corner of this eye. Even though this one is cut off a little bit, I want to just take these planes of the nose into account and make sure that, okay, so this distance here is the same length as her eye on our right. This one is going to be, this is foreshortened because of her turning head. So my skewer again. Okay, and then this is about 3/4. It is truly 3/4 of the same length. So that's a really helpful measurement. I'm going to just take my skewer also and just go up from the outer edge of the nasal wing, and it does line up with the inner corner of her eye, which is what I would expect. That's a pretty standard measurement. So if I do the same thing here, then I know that my inner corner of my eye is going to be there in my drawing. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and just rough in this eye. Now I'm going to check again. My drawing is a little bit bigger, so I'm going to use that as my measurement and see. Okay, that looks good. So paying attention to that tilt, that would be a full eye, and since it's 3/4, my eye is going to end about right there. Okay. Really want to nail that angle, so I'm going to just put a little line there. Again, the inner corner of her eye, we don't see it because it's on the other side. It's blocked by her nose. Okay. Just check those again. And this measuring is really going to take us into our drawing on Wednesday, where we're kind of loosely using the Loomis if we want to, but we don't have to. But we will be turning more to our own powers of observation to place things and then measure and compare to check what we've done. All right, I want to, at this point, think about this side plane. She's got a really beautiful cheekbone. And also the structure of the eye socket is really nicely defined under her eyes. That's something that you could accentuate if you wanted to. I know Teresa Oaxaca likes to do that in her drawings, where you can really see the sphere of the eyeball in the drawing. She likes to really play that up. Okay, I'm going to go ahead now and just want to see how much distance there is between the top of her eyelid and her eyebrow and compare that. Okay, so that's the same. So top of the lid to the top of the eyebrow. Okay, I just wanted to make sure I didn't make this too high. It's very dark on her brow bone, and underneath in her eyelid folds, I just want to make sure I've given everything enough room. Oh, one thing I see that I need to do is eliminate some of this edge. You don't see all of it because of the turn of her head. So it does kind of a drop off there, comes down. This is all shadow. And then you can see a bit of the edge of her face here. There's a little bit of a bump from her brow bone, her supraorbital. Take that up. And then this edge here on her forehead really gets dissolved in the light. So I don't want to emphasize that too much. I want to kind of pick up here where her hairline starts, which I know is about here. She's got a nice widow's peak. Comes over and along this temporal arch here is where you can see her hairline starts to recede back into shadow. And then to her ear. I think one of the things I can do is indicate the fullness that her hair gives to the top of her head. It's not quite so flat. Looking at her ear, so her hair is about coming out to about that far. Don't want to go too far out with her hair here. Earring, come later. Okay. So one thing I know I'm gonna really enjoy doing is developing her beautiful neck. She's just a gorgeous woman. You can see how her sternocleidomastoids are really well defined, and where her clavicles meet here in the pit of her neck, that's really nicely defined too. So I will definitely enjoy working on that. I'm going to just give her a little bit more neck here. It does go into shadow. All right, this is a good point to kind of take a break and step back from your work and evaluate. So I'm going to do that. then I can see right away that I haven't given her enough of the backside of her skull. That's going to need to come up. Get rid of some of these extra lines now too. I think I may need to bring this out a little bit. My edge along here is starting to look pretty inelegant, but I'm really searching for that profile line. But I think I'm going to go ahead and take one more look, see if there's anything else glaring that I need to. Check that ear again. Actually, her ear isn't that much lower than her nose. I guess it's the earring that threw me off. So I need to bring that ear. Do you like how it can be ambidextrous when necessary? Okay. Hey, excuse me. And I may as well check the top also of her ear. Okay, there's a little bit of room there. All right, I'm going to leave that. I'm going to leave the ear as it is right now. And I want to go ahead and put in her eyes so she doesn't look like she's asleep. But before I do that, I'm going to put a tone over a lot of this drawing. Get a different pencil. I'm just going to take an H pencil and I'm going to just lay in a simple value. I'm rotating my pencil as I put down this tone. Lightening up a little bit here on my front plane. On our left side, but I'm gonna try to make our right of her face somewhat darker. I want to establish just a simple tone before I get into developing really any more detail. So this ancient board that I'm working on has a few pieces of newsprint underneath this piece of drawing paper. I've had this since I was in graduate school. It does have a bit of a texture that I'm picking up on, but that's where I can use my tortillon, my stump later on to smooth things out. And I might just go over this a little bit more with my F pencil. Change my angle somewhat. So when we start a block in on Wednesday, this is basically what we'll be doing. We'll be plotting the head and then putting in the features, and then we will just be establishing two values, a light and a midtone. And we really won't go any more than that. We want to really spend time just getting a good start. It's what Dan Thompson refers to as the art of the start. It is really an art to get a good drawing going, and you just can't rush it. If you rush it, you will regret it. Never seems to fail. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead now and start looking at her eyes more carefully. I want to place the iris. You can really see the underside of her upper lids on both eyes. Her eyes are really in shadow. So I'm going to just come back and I'm going to switch pencils this time to something a little bit darker. I'm going to use a B pencil. Getting brave here. Something a little bit darker, heavier. Remember, this line across the center of the eye is pretty straight. There's not a lot of angle change until you start to come down towards the inner corner. And you see that if you look at Barg plates, you'll see that the eye is very, very much built of angled and straight lines. This is that nice edge underneath her bottom lid that I just want to put there. Okay, so I see darkness here from the lower plane of her upper lid. And I'm also looking at where her iris ends. It's about here. And I can see a little bit of the change in value for where her carbuncle of her inner eye starts. So I will also just put in, there's a tiny little triangle right here between this plane, underplane, and the outer edge of her iris. Her pupil, I can see a bit of it. It's very dark. Just want to leave a little bit. There's a tiny little light. Okay, and that's about all I'm going to do on that eye, and come over and basically repeat those steps on this eye. Okay, dark, There is the edge of her sclera, separating that from that carbuncle, that inner corner. Dark, dark underplane of the lid, straight across. And then a pretty graceful sweep down. Also see a little bit of sclera right here, not too much. I'm going to put in that waterline on her lower lid. Barely see. I think this is really just shadow. It's not I think the curve of her iris is about there. A little bit of a reflected light. And then I'm going to just darken this. It's really dark on this side, as it should be, since her face is in a lot of shadow. Don't really see anything here. I'm going to take my 2H pencil now and just kind of burnish all of this. And I'll do the same thing over here. Even take that highlight down just a little bit more. Okay. So I'm not going to get any darker than that right now. I know it's not exactly looking like her eyes, but I'm going to keep developing other parts of her face. I particularly want to come in and start to look at her lid area and get her eyebrows placed. Dark, dark here. This is all going to be really fun to develop when we're at that point where we're ready to do that, but not yet. Although I am going to do a little bit of it. Can't help it. Okay. This is a really nice area of darker value. Hopefully I'm capturing some of her wisdom. She seems like she has such a wise, knowing face. And I'll do the same thing over here.